Yeah, I think I became their worst nightmare or archetype for what, their worst nightmare looks like in saying, hey, if you don't see or leverage or appreciate the value that I have, I'm going to take it somewhere else.
What happened during that? I think you said it was a 10-year period from 21 to 31. Were you always unhappy? Did that stress come over time, or what led to that point where you're like, I need to move on and do something for myself?
I won't say that I was always unhappy. I don't think I knew enough to know what unhappy was. So, banking was my first like big boy job, if you will. First job that I got benefits, the 401k, all of that. First job that I was ever promoted in. And I experienced rapid growth early on. So, my first promotion was about 5 months in. And then after that, there was another 6 months, and I was promoted again. And the length of time between promotions grew as I kind of climbed up the corporate ladder. But I was a relatively young manager. Definitely kind of like the poster child for what employee engagement looked like. Had a lot of eyes from senior leadership across the two banks that I worked for, and was really positioned for a lot of exposure when it came to this is the example of what you should be. So I really thrived in that environment because I liked the chase. Um, but I guess where that came back to bite me was I was growing and used to growing at a rapid pace, and my expectations around growth ended up outpacing what my direct leadership felt maybe was appropriate or was necessary. And so here I'm like, I want more, I want more, I want more. And they're like, pump the brakes a little bit, like, guy, you're not ready for this. And so I stopped looking for the validation within that corporate space and started building for myself outside of it. And that's where I feel like I was retaliated against. So prior to, I want to say 2018, corporate citizenship was like my focus. That was the thing. I was like, okay, I'm trying to get the most money, the highest position in the shortest amount of time. And then I published my first book, and I'm like, hey, I can do things without having somebody else chime in and tell me whether or not that was okay or appropriate or good, or have it reflected in my review. So first book published in 2018, second book published 2019, followed by a TEDx talk, first feature in a large publication 2019. And I'm like really feeling myself at this point. And that's where I started to get a lot of the pushback, which made the environment undesirable because at the same time, I was still pursuing growth. And so anytime I would apply for a promotion or a transfer, anything to get me out of the situation that I was in, there was always a reason for why it couldn't happen. Um, but I was always, meeting expectations, and I was always doing good work, but I wasn't doing enough good work. And so I was just like, all right, well, who controls how you define good? And I said, I'm going to play the game and, let them tell me what they want me to do and do it to the best of my ability. But I'm going to use the time outside of those hours to really build something for myself. And entrepreneurship was always a goal. I just didn't know what it was going to look like, what form or shape it was going to take, and fell into personal finance on the education side and said, hey, like, this is a lane, this is where people, have a need. And so I'm going to explore that. Yeah, I am really kind of centered around empowerment. And I find in the various pivots that I've taken, and I'll redefine pivot as evolution, if you will. I have touched on a couple of different spaces, right? Writing, speaking, coaching, and really my claim to fame is in a mix between personal finance and firing my boss. Yeah, so I've been working in banking for a decade. I started at 21, and about 2 weeks after I turned 31, I decided that I wanted to go out on my own and pursue entrepreneurship. But that wasn't just kind of like a happy, la la rainbow situation. Um, I was experiencing a lot of stress and anxiety on the job based off of a lot of the success that I was having outside of work. So anytime I would share any good news about a publication that I was featured in or that I was writing for, any good news about any conferences that I was going to speak at, just anything, there was always a question from my manager, my direct manager, around, well, why are you doing this thing? What is your intent as it relates to being here in the company? And we have to document this. There's always a series of, those three things. And so because I had been experiencing a lot, growing my brand and getting the accolades outside of the workplace, I felt that, the skill sets and certainly the attention from an internet perspective would be enough to carry me into entrepreneurship with relative ease. That's a different story. But when I got to that point of just realizing and recognizing that my value as I experienced it outside of the workplace impact was not recognized in the workplace, I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna take a chance on myself. And so I submitted a resignation through email at about 9:30 in the morning. And then I tweeted about it, not really expecting it to do anything or go anywhere. And next thing I know, it's viral. I think it was running for about 2 days. There were 2.2 million impressions on the tweet. And I think aspects of the tweet that really kind of caught people's attention were mental health, and then just making the decision to quit your job, right? I think that's a goal for a lot of people. So that launched me into a new stratosphere as it relates to media.